Recently, while doing some research for a video, I came across the French writer, philosopher Georges Bataille. Now, I was vaguely familiar with him because of one of his books, a twisted tale of eroticism called Story of the Eye. And I had heard about his magazine and secret society he established, but really knew next to nothing about him. Digging deeper, though, sparked my imagination, and the more I discovered, the more intrigued I became until it turned into a minor obsession. Georges Bataille, born in 1897, wrote essays, novels, poetry, and such, expressing a fascination with eroticism, mysticism, and the irrational. He viewed excess as a way of gaining personal independence. You know, the whole road of excess leads to the palace of wisdom thing. In the 1920s, Bataille began hanging out with the French surrealists, and during this period he started editing and formulating several works on sociology, literature, and religion. In 1928, Bataille published his first novel, The Story of the Eye, under a pseudonym, but wasn't revealed that he was the writer of that infamous work until a few years after his death. Bataille worked as a librarian and medieval specialist at the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris until 1942, and in 1946 he founded an influential literary review journal which he wrote and edited until his death in 1962. Now, this is the general info you're going to get on Bataille when looking him up, but what I find fascinating is that period of his life during the 1930s. For Bataille was, by his own admission, the most godless of modern intellectuals, an anti-theist mystic, and the founder of a sacred cult of sacrificial orgy. Like most intellectuals of the 1930s, Bataille found the tide of fascism sweeping over Europe to be most disturbing. In truth, he recoiled from both fascism and communism because of their commitment to collective structures of nation, state, and authority. As a response, he founded the journal Acéphale. Acéphale was a public review which published 5 issues from 1936 until 1939. In this magazine, Bataille and other prominent French intellectuals published essays and reviews, poetry and art that celebrated the primordial individual and the power of instinct. The intent was to create a combative energy against the authoritarian political surge. Acéphale, however, was not limited strictly to the realm of print. At the same time he created the journal, Bataille founded a secret society also called Acéphale. The symbol of the society, which was also on the cover of the first issue of the review, was drawn by the French artist André Masson. It features a headless man inspired by the drawings of Leonardo da Vinci, and the word Acéphale comes from an ancient Greek word meaning headless. Since the society was secret, few facts about his agenda are known. But what we do know is Bataille organized nocturnal torchlit gatherings in the woods near an oak that had been struck by lightning. There, members of the society were required to partake in rituals, perform acts of sexual transgression, and meditate on the works of Friedrich Nietzsche and the Marquis de Sade. Bataille was also fascinated with that most extreme of rituals, human sacrifice. There was discussion amongst the members of Acéphale about performing such an act, but it was never actualized, even though some members themselves volunteered to be the sacrificial victim. The reason why this never happened was because none of them was willing to be the executioner. With Acéphale, Bataille wanted to start a new religion, or anti-religion, based upon Nietzsche's diagnosis of the post-theological epoch. Basically, the aftermath of the death of God. That's what the headless man represented, the death of God, headless, no God. Now, with the collapse of the Judeo-Christian theological order, Nietzsche believed the foundation of Western civilization would also collapse. Therefore, nihilism would arise. Since the shadow of the dead God may continue to engulf us for thousands of years, the war between Dionysus and the crucified would commence. Nietzsche believed that the shadow of Yahweh and all its manifestations must still be vanquished so humanity could undergo naturalization. But in the midst of such a crisis, Nietzsche wondered, how will we console ourselves and transcend this nihilism? We do it by partaking in Dionysian aspects of existence. It is only through such actions, said Nietzsche, that we will be able to live up to that terrifyingly sublime deed of murdering God. Through Acéphale, Bataille was determined to lead us out of the labyrinth of contemporary nihilism and show us the way back into the heart of darkness. He was determined to expose and embrace the horror. Also, as one who adhered to Nietzschean thought, Bataille hated how the great philosopher's legacy had been warped to the point where even Hitler claimed him as an inspiration. The person responsible for this bastardization of Nietzschean philosophy was Nietzsche's sister, Elizabeth, who rewrote some of his material to make him sound like an anti-Semite and nationalist, which, in truth, he was neither. So, besides establishing a Nietzschean anti-religion, one of the functions of Acéphale was to clear Nietzsche's name. But, unfortunately, not much was to become of Acéphale and Bataille's greater goals because a little thing called World War II got in the way. With Acéphale and his works of eroticism, Georges Bataille has found an audience amongst the avant-garde. Within some circles, his influence has been considerable, almost as significant as his heroes, the Marquis de Sade and Nietzsche. For some, his joyful cynicism in the face of modernity's emptiness and his uncompromising drive to peel back the layers of civilization, exposing its obscene core, is enough to make him great. So, in conclusion, I pose a question. Could Acéphale be considered the left-hand path? It has some of the similar or familiar trappings of the left-hand path. What do you think? Leave your comments down below.